have a personal experience with crystal meth, and it's not a thing that I like to discuss openly all the time.
Almost destroyed me. It financially ruined me. I became separated from my family, from my friends.
Often with the meth is that they go into psychosis, and being psychotic, they have to have psychiatric care before you can even look at treatment for the addiction side of it.
They'd be out there doing some really ugly things against society.
Sometimes the kids don't listen to adults.
Can you make a good decision?
This program was made possible by Imagica Film Productions, Vancouver's new and exciting film and HD production company, located in the hub of Yaletown, Vancouver. Imagica offers a wide range of production and post-production needs, including studio space, green room, white room, lighting, cameras, sound engineering, and editing. Contact us at 604-689-4624 or visit us online at www.imagicaproductions.com.
Welcome to Sufism and Mysticism. My name is Moravarid. Thank you again for joining us at our program today. Our topic today is crystal meth and its existence within our society, amongst the youth especially, and its effects and what causes it and what are the likely factors that contribute to its existence among our young people. But before we go to that, I'd like to introduce you to a very special guest who will also be a positive addition to the Imagica Productions, and her name is Orian Garland. Please help me welcome her. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming and being with us.
It's my pleasure.
We were going to talk about crystal meth and its existence within our young people and some older people as well in our society, and how that relates to Sufism in regard to some of the effects which have been caused and attributed to the high that you get from crystal meth.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting topic actually. A lot of the practices we do as Sufis or as people walking the Sufi path do actually bring you some of the similar highs to those that people find through drugs, including crystal meth. So it's actually a very interesting topic. It sounds very unrelated, Sufism and crystal meth, but in a lot of ways it's got its similarities. So.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of, from personal experience of going to high school and of course college and university, I know that a lot of young people turn to drugs and crystal meth as a result of being under such pressure and having the feeling of always wanting to prove themselves to not only their parents, their peers, and the competition that's a natural existent among teenagers especially.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress that comes about through all of those things, high school and peer pressures and expectations from parents and things like this. I mean, all children are under phenomenal amounts of stress that probably have never come upon them in earlier generations, when we did have more social support and less advertising in the media and all this things that we're bombarded with now, that they feel like they need to live up and be people that that they aren't necessarily comfortable being,
right? And
to all be the same kind of person, to fit in with everybody, to be in the in crowd, to be all these things. And drugs can often be things that people turn to either become popular because all the popular people are doing it, or to escape some of those stresses that they feel they get. They finally feel that relaxation that they could get other places,
exactly.
But they don't know anymore because we've lost touch. I mean, a great deal with our spirituality, with our religious background, because it's not cool.
Yeah. So really, Orion, there are actually two factors at play here. Turning to substance abuse as a means of fitting in and giving into peer pressure, and then as well as escaping that pressure that is put on you by having to conform and be like other people, and as a means of dealing with your everyday stresses, right?
Yeah, those are definitely two major factors. And there's another factor as well that could be there, that simply as human beings, we need spiritual experiences. Like, we need to have those highs. We need to have the highs that you would get through meditation, or through prayer, or through a whirling ecstatic dancing, or through chanting, or through all of this song and music and art and all this creative expression that we get through, that we can actually get through religion, that we can get through spirituality, that we can get through any of these practices, and that we see a lot of in Sufism, the amount of art and the music and poetry and dance and a creative expression that comes out of that, and a unity, a community feel, and all of these things. Right. I mean, we need that as human beings,
right,
more so than any of the animals ever needed it. You know, we need this as human beings. It's a requirement.
Right.
And if we don't have those outlets, if we don't have that way of reaching those highs, then maybe we will turn to substances to reach the same states that, you know, that we actually really need to get to.
Now, I remember the first time you mentioned to me about chanting, which is a practice of Sufism, as I hope I'm getting it correctly.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our lovely audience what exactly chanting is, and how that relates to Sufi practice, and the peace that you get from it, and how that relates to some of the highs that I guess you can get from chemical substance abuse.
That's a very big question.
Just a little summary.
Yeah, just a little summary of that. Oh my goodness. Okay. I mean, chanting is it's sort of a form of meditation. I mean, people sit and meditate. People do chanting meditations. It's very similar to repeating a mantra. If you know much about yoga practices or Indian practices, the same idea of repeating a mantra, or repeating, you know, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, or other phrases and words in whatever tradition you happen to be in. That basically it stopped the mind from running itself around in circles and trying to control the world and worrying about homework or worrying about all these things that the mind creates so much distress, honestly.
Yes.
Within people. It's just amazing how much of our own stress and distress we create in our own heads. So doing chanting and mantras and singing and things like this actually helps to stop the mind from running itself around in circles and distressing us so much. So as well as, I mean, they have so much significance, some of the things that we repeat, you know, that they can bring us to a state of greater connectedness with God, with Allah, with all there is, whatever you want to call it. Which does bring, I mean, it brings an incredible sense of release and relief, and with it, some of those more spiritual highs that hopefully we can replace for the drugs that people are using now.
And I guess the big question is, why don't the youth use a spiritual means of reaching that high rather than a chemical substance use that is so damaging, right?
Yeah, and I mean, to a certain extent, they don't know that there is the other possibility. I mean, people don't think of spirituality as getting high. Yeah. You know, honestly,
they don't connect it.
It's not something people will talk about, because getting high has such a negative connotation to it. Has such, you know, whereas spirituality often can be seen as stuffy or new agey, you know, fluffy kind of, often the you know, people who are just not grounded at all and not, you know, they don't have that cool, down-to-earth feel to them. Mm-hmm. And so people will turn to drugs basically they don't have another way to go. I mean, they don't know where to find this spirituality. They don't have any outlet for it. So, and plus it's easier. You know, it's so much easier to take a pill than it would be to sit for an hour and meditate, or to, you know, find a zikr that you can go to where you could really get into it. And it takes a while to really get into it as well, you know. but people have to train for it. People have to get used to it and get into it and get the feel for it. And it's much easier to take drugs.
Of course. And hopefully this episode will be a contributing factor to letting the people out there know that there are alternative ways of dealing with stress and pressures that are part of everyday life, and that there are other options to consider, and hopefully that'll get across, right?
Hopefully, yeah. If we can do that, we'll be golden.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and thankful that you will be joining our cast of great people of Imagica Productions. And I would like to thank you again for joining us, and it was a pleasure having Orian with us today, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
This program is brought to you by Meg Energy. We make Earth Energy affordable to comfort you at home and at work. Earth Energy is abundant, reliable, environmentally friendly, and the most economical source of energy known today.
Good afternoon, I'm Cindy Silver, and I'm here this afternoon with Constable Richard Dion with the Drugs and Organized Crime Awareness Services, the Lower Mainland District RCMP, and we're here today to talk about crystal meth. Constable Dion, explain to us what your role is with the crystal meth prevention program.
Thanks, Cindy. I am with the RCMP Organized Crime and Drug Awareness Service, which is a branch of the RCMP which deals primarily with the intelligence and gathering of drugs, drug trends. With that, we educate communities, our own police officers, and deal with the media. We analyze drugs for their qualitative and quantitative analysis, and we are drug experts, if you will. We provide evidence in court and are certainly versed in drug trends.
And the RCMP is involved in communities, trying to help communities become aware of and address and respond to the crystal meth risk. What is it that you do? What is your role in that? And what does the RCMP do to motivate communities?
We are, especially with the crystal meth stronghold that we have in communities, we are recognizing that it's going to take more than enforcement to deal with the crystal meth trend that is really destroyed a lot of communities in British Columbia and in Canada. So our role is to mobilize communities to get lay people involved, from doctors to students to teachers, politicians, and get them involved so that it's a community effort to primarily to educate people about crystal meth. Great success has been in the North Shore, where there's been the North Shore Meth Task Force, and it's been community people getting involved with the schools, with Salvation Army, with the police, to get the message out, and then also to have a prevention message, because you can't just have people talking about how bad crystal meth is. You have to have a prevention message so that people who are aware are going to, hopefully make good decisions. Because at the end of the day, nobody wakes up and decides to become a crystal meth addict. They make choices from their first use, everything from alcohol, marijuana, crack cocaine, ecstasy, or these are all drugs that either have a stimulant or depressant effect. And once you're exposed to crystal meth, how it impacts the brain in such a way that, your brain is basically imprinted for stimulant use, and it's very, very addictive. Your brain has built into it basically the need to protect itself from thirst, from hunger, from rest, like from overexertion, and it'll basically tell you, you're tired, you got to sit down. If you're hungry, you're going to eat. If you're thirsty, you have a drink of water. What the scariest thing about crystal meth is that it tricks the brain in telling you that all those needs are met. So you have an individual who is thirsty, is hungry, needs to sleep, but basically their brain says, you know what, you don't need to. So that explains perfectly how somebody can stay awake for days and days upon end, because the effects of the drug are going to last for 10 to 12 hours.